My name is Darren McAnearney, and this podcast is a direct information podcast based on mental health. I call it the Fitness and Mental Health Podcast, and is directly based towards my life experience with mental health, and all I want to do is enable others to be better to better understand mental health. I'm not here to put on a fancy accent and pretend to use mental health to help other people. For my own personal gain, it's not about that. All I want to do is put the information out there, and I'm hoping that from my life experiences, from all the things that I've experienced, from all the suffering I've went through and anything I might have overcome, that if I can just directly speak to one person and that one person can take the good from it and hopefully make better decisions than I made at the time. Now, I'm okay right now. It's not to say that people can't take a step back at times, but my overall goal is to try and step forward and help other people step forward with me. I want to be a support network to people. So if you feel that you need help, I'm going to open up the show so you can ask any question you want anonymously. I feel that everyone has a stigma with mental health in terms of they feel that there's lots of different outlets where you can go for help. You can go to a psychologist, you can go to a therapist, you can ask your doctor. Many people that truly suffer with mental health will probably never ever reach out, and they will suffer in silence. And from my experience, it's not about talking out. It's not just about talking to someone and putting it out there. From my experience, I have no issue talking to anyone. I can talk all day, and with people that I love and people that I care about, I have spoken to, well, maybe not all of them, but some people in particular, and they know who they are. And I do talk, and I talk openly, and maybe I'm slightly different than most people, but my experiences matter, and I know from people that I currently work with, people I'm currently friends with, that they all come to me and talk to me, and it's because they know I've experienced mental health on the worst side. There's so many different aspects of it. On the outside, I'm your typical guy. I look like a big meathead bodybuilder, and people will judge you for how you look. Now, when I was younger, I would have always taken that to heart. It would have hurt me, being stigmatized, being put under an umbrella. But as I get older, I realise the only people that are important is your immediate family and the people that you love the most. I think when you have experienced mental health, or you're currently going through depression or severe depression, I think you forget about the things that are closest to you. And especially with social media today, you can look too far down the road, and you're always looking to reach that next obstacle, reach that next goal, reach that next target. But I think sometimes a lot of the mental health issues come from not realising what your real goal is, not realising what contentment means, not being happy in a place that you are right now. I think that once you realise that your immediate family is where you should be, where you make your foundation, is everything that you need for a good foundation to move forward, and everything else then comes in time. And I always remember a story. It was Kevin Hart, and everybody knows Kevin Hart now, but his story was that somebody came up to him one day and said, how does it feel to be rich and famous all of a sudden? You just come out of nowhere. And Kevin Hart said, I didn't just come out of nowhere. I've been doing this for 25 years. And he got to a stage where he was sick and tired of people thinking that it was just an overnight success. But what I took from that story was the key phrase 25 years that he worked at his craft. And only at the end of that 25 years did he become rich and famous. And he's still doing it now, but he's considered to be in the last 5 years, 10 years to be really successful. But when do you ever really see someone that's close to you stick at something for 20 to 25 years and really go after it and really see it through and really make a success of it? And now it's mostly, I'll spend maybe a year, 18 months, doesn't work out, I'll try something new. Like, you don't really see people spending that much time trying to be successful. And those are the simple things that you need to take into consideration when you are someone who can be affected by negative issues. Now, there's so many stigmas attached to mental health. There's so many different angles of it. It's absolutely incredible how deep you can go into it and still not fully understand it or fully understand yourself. Now, I'm not here as a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a therapist. I'm here based on my own experiences, and my experiences are they're very in depth, they're very dark. Some of them today I'm gonna sort of touch on the topic, but I'm not going to go into them because I don't want the podcast running too long. I want people to be able to come and understand what they're going to listen to in this podcast. So today is like an introduction to mental health, an introduction to me, an introduction to, what I want from this podcast. And as I say, I want no personal gain from this podcast. I actually have to pay for this podcast out of my own pocket, and I do not want anything in return. So this isn't about anybody coming to my businesses or, coming to me and giving me money from this. This is solely based, it doesn't matter what my name is, it's solely based on me helping other people. Whether you're male, female, black, white, if you're young, you're old, it doesn't matter. My experience is my experience, and you can take with it what you please. It's a completely no-nonsense podcast. Now, it's something very close to my heart, as I've experienced mental health on many different levels. I've experienced it from I was very, very young. I was actually on the Gym Gurus podcast today, Natasha, and we spoke about different things that affected her, and it actually made me realise if I had come on here without being on her podcast first, I would have overlooked certain things. And one of the aspects was my family, my mother and father split up when I was 5 years old. Now, I don't even look at that as something that affects my mental health, but it did. It obviously did. A 5-year-old boy moving away from his home, being moved around his house to different homes. My mother was put into psychiatric hospitals while I was born, and I was there with her. Then again, when I was 4 years old, then we were moved from Banbridge to Newry. All these things happened in a very short period of time, and I have completely overlooked them my whole life. And it was only today that I realised that I experienced those same things at a very young age and a very influential age. Now, if you've got kids, they learn very, very quickly, and they do take things on board, and it does affect how they grow up. It affects how they see the world. It affects how they love others. It affects how they treat others. Now, I can't even believe that I actually just let all that go. I completely forgot about all that. And now that I'm thinking about it, that's another avenue that I haven't considered. Coming on from that, I've done a lot of notes here, and basically my main topic today is, why am I doing this podcast? The first thing that I jotted down was, I'm really sick and tired of listening to other people talking about mental health that have no clue. And everybody has known someone or been close to someone that has experienced mental health. Okay, that's there's no doubt about that. And the level on which they're affected it doesn't matter if mine is worse than yours or yours is worse than mine. It just matters how it affects you. Okay. Now, my issue is with people that are using it for their own personal gain. I don't think this is something that you should be using for publicity. It's just way too hurtful to people. It's way too dark, and shouldn't be a promotion stigma attached to it. Speak out and help others. Like, if you've truly experienced it, 9 times out of 10, most people are not going to speak out. And all you're kind of doing is isolating them even more. Like, you're putting yourself up there on a pedestal while you're saying this, while that person's sitting in the dark, being afraid to talk to anyone. Now, all they're doing is seeing someone who's big and confident and talking out, saying that they like to help others. They're still not going to contact you. And if they do, it's the 1%. It's probably less than 1%. It's 0.01%. Like, I know for a fact, if I was obviously experiencing mental health at one point. I was diagnosed with severe depression. With that severe depression, I wouldn't go to anyone for help. In my mind, I was fine at one stage and I will be fine afterwards. That's what I thought. Talking was never ever an issue for me. I could talk all day, so it's nothing to do with that. Getting it out off my chest and not thinking about it. Once it's gone, it's gone. That doesn't happen. Now, I just want people to be giving out the right information, and I want people to be able to go to places other than somewhere where they can, like a support line where they can call. Most people won't call, and if they do, it's usually at the latter stages. It's at the most serious stage of, they're thinking of hurting themselves or they're thinking about self-harm. I want to take it back a stage from that. And if you have things in your mind, or you don't understand why you're thinking about things the way you think about it, the way you see the world, or you've got different issues and you literally want to ask a question anonymously, I think there's a big avenue that people can ask for help anonymously. And if I can get a question on board and you can send me questions and I can come onto the podcast and answer them and give you like a personal reply to that, then I'd love to do that. That's a great way of helping. And your names don't have to be mentioned. It's got nothing to do with it. It's literally putting a question out there, allowing you to come back and listen, and it actually being directed directly to you in that question. So the other reasons for me doing this is I'm going to touch on, my life experiences here. So these are all going to be individualized podcasts for me. So I'm going to go through and touch on the most serious ones now. I spent the last 3-4 days trying to fine tune everything so I don't overspeak in the podcast, because I want people to stay interested. I want them to really listen to what I have to say, and I want people to just listen to my voice and realise how sincere and how severe these issues can be, and how much I directly want to affect people by the words in which I speak. As I said, there's no personal gain to this whatsoever. I don't care if you know my name. I don't care if you forget it the next day. I just want you to know that you go onto the podcast, you listen, and you take the best from it. Now, I'm going to give up the darkest, deepest parts of my life, right? Because I want to show people out there that even someone like me, someone who has a stigma attached to being a big meathead, has the ability to have a lot more intellectually inside, and what's shown on the outside is not what's actually going on the inside. Underneath the surface, there's way more going on, and nobody will ever see it on the outside. Now, a close friend of mine is currently suffering at the minute, and I wake up every day now, and my immediate goal is to go to the gym and train with him, and just literally touch on different things and different ideas, and just keep him active. And that immediate effect is trying to draw him away, to show that there's other people, there for him. I'm there for him when he needs it. We touch on different subjects, and I give him a different outlet of what to think. So if he's trapped in his own mind, it's very hard to think clearly. So I'm there for support for him, but I wish that I had that support. So the whole point of the podcast is to give alternative methods to help you and to move forward from any mental health issues that you might experience, any depression, anything that can help your life and move it on. I really feel that my experiences can do that, and that's why I'm doing this podcast. So from the very, very beginning, Obviously, I mentioned that my parents separated when I was 5 years old, and that's one aspect. Now, I don't feel like that's a big issue for me. I'm the sort of guy that things happen and you move forward. And I don't know how I was able to do that from a young age. It's kind of built into my character even now. I'm very, very black and white. So I look at things in terms of what it is, can it be fixed, and can I move forward? And I make it as simple as possible. Now, don't get me wrong, when you're experiencing mental health and your head is just not going in the right direction that you want it to, those lines get blurred. Now, you find it very hard to answer any of those questions. So a lot of the podcasts, so one of the podcasts will be, based on my childhood with my parents splitting up, my mother being institutionalised, from a very young age, me deciding, I knew my career path from age 6. I was overweight as a child, and I was bullied for being overweight. I was called names, Blob, Mr. Blobby, Fat Boy Slim. There was quite a lot. That went on right up till I took control of that when I was 9 or 10, maybe a little bit older. I had a very, very close friend who died in a car accident, in a hit and run. Well, it wasn't a hit and run, but it was a road traffic collision, and he died on that day. And his sister was one of my closest friends as well, and it affected the whole in Uri at the time, and it affected us, and it affected everything, and that still stays with me to this day. From there, I always sort of knew where I was going in life. I always wanted to be a professional footballer, always done everything to do that, and I played for Portadown in Northern Ireland, and eventually I got through everything, got signed a professional contracts to go to Middlesbrough. I also had offers from Chelsea. Moving across the water to live in England, experiencing depression before I left, when I come home. And it's only really looking back now that I'm older that I can see how those things affected me, and I didn't know I was experiencing it when I was in it. The decisions that I made, now obviously I'm not a professional footballer. I made the decision at the time not to pursue that career when I was 17 years old, and I was making decisions that an adult at my age now would probably make and probably still need help with. And I made those decisions without asking anyone, without talking to anybody. I just decided I'm not doing this anymore and going home. And I really needed a support network at the time, so that was a massive massive time frame in my life. When I moved home at 17, just turning 18, I attempted my first suicide attempt. I tried to take my life. I'll touch on those situations later on in an episode based on that. Not long after, it was roughly less than a year. It was about 11 months after that. I'll never forget. My daddy was still alive, and he basically says to me, "What did you do that for? Never do anything that stupid again." And I looked at him and goes, no, I'll never do that again. And he goes, good. And he lived in Craigavon at the time. I lived in Uri. But through the football, we started, seeing each other a little bit more often. I never seen him growing up. But I'll never forget that he said that to me. And then 11 months later, my daddy took his own life. And that was a huge turning point in my life. Now, a lot of people can take that and really crawl within themselves. Now, don't get me wrong, I did, in a sense. Obviously, it was hurt. I take a lot of responsibility for that at the time. There's certain aspects that I can never forget that I seen, even when my daddy wasn't well, the things that I seen when he was getting to his worst point. things I had to do to look after him, moving in with him. I definitely feel that a lot of those things shaped me, but I never took it the worst way that I could have. I tried to take the positives from it, and I was very fortunate. I say this to people when I'm talking all the time, that I was very, very fortunate that I felt sympathy towards my father. And only for that reason, it allowed me to move forward in the right direction. Now, at the time, I was starting into a new relationship with a girl I was meant to get married to. We were together 6 years. And in that time, it definitely affected, my decision-making ability in that time. And obviously being still a child, that person was the person that sort of took me out of my worst time when my father did do that. And I'll always be grateful for that, because for a long time I couldn't really speak much, and I got very quiet and, didn't really want to do anything or go anywhere. I pretty much quit my whole football career not long after that point. Football just never was the same after that, which obviously in hindsight, even at the time, I was thinking, I know for a fact that when I'm in my 30s, I'm going to look back and say, I should have played or continued playing at some level. But I remember thinking, if I choose not to, I can never look back and regret. And I still remember those decisions, and I still obviously have to abide by that right now. And that's what I do. So it doesn't annoy me too much. It is very frustrating, because I'll always remember Ronnie McFall was a Portadown manager, one of the longest serving managers in the whole of Europe, and I think he still is today. It's over 20 years, I think 21 years. He just looked at me one day, and this was years afterwards, and seen me in the outlet and just looked at me and said, wasted talent. And that hit me hard. It was very tough to hear, but like anything, sometimes you need a reality check, and sometimes the people that care about you the most don't give you the reality check that you need. And I think it's important as a real friend, as someone who really cares about you, to tell you the truth. And that's no matter if you fall out with them or not, because in the end, if you're the right person, you'll take it the right way eventually. You'll understand that they've done it because they love you. And if you've got a bit of a shitty personality, you'll take that the wrong way, and you'll hold on to that anger, and you'll hold on to that hate, and you won't let that go. And that's on you. That's not on them. They give you the information, and what you do with it is up to you. Going on from that, from the death of my father, I never really had a support system, so I was always kind of learning on my own. Always sort of having to find my way, and making all of the bad decisions, and it was probably the best thing that ever happened me in a sense, because when I took it the right way, I realised that life is very, very short. Life is, you can walk out one day and get hit by a bus and you're gone. It's just like that, you're gone. When you lose someone really close to you, you realise that they were there yesterday and now today they're not. And they do not want you living the rest of your life, missing them, and affecting yourself in the worst possible way, where you're holding yourself back, you're preventing yourself from being happy. Now, the people that care about you the most, whether they're here or not, will always want you to be happy, will always want you to move forward with your life and enjoy it as much as you can, because they're not here to do it. If they were here to do it with you, they would do it with you, and you know that for a fact. If they weren't true friends, now that's a different sense. If they didn't want you to be happy, then they probably shouldn't have been your friend in the first place. So do not be afraid to be happy when you lose someone. I think loss is one of the major factors in triggering, different types of mental health. Now, it's not always the same for everybody, and this is the confusing part. Some people always think it's caused by an event, but people that experience mental health when it's not by an event, this is the difficult part. And I feel, no matter what had happened to me, I feel this is the way I am. Part of me feels like it can be a genetic thing. Now, whether I'm right or wrong is up for discussion. That there's no fact to that it could be genetic, but it is possible. I feel from my experiences and from other suicides in my family, and my daddy's brothers and stuff, they've also experienced this, and therefore we have cousins who have also been through this, and I just feel like sometimes it can be triggered, it can be lying dormant, and it can be a possibility where it can be affected, but how the heightenedness of how it affects you will change from person to person. Now, anything that I ever did in my life in terms of trying to take my own life, I feel I've always had this feeling of being in control. And in that control, I feel when I decide I want to go, I'm going to go. Nobody can take that away from me. Now, most of the time looking back, it's been an emotional trigger that's taken me to the point of no return. But when I hit the point of no return, the other part kicks in, which is the part where I have no fear of death and I have no remorse for it. I have decided that I do not want to be here, and I feel that I have no purpose. Now, that's not the same for everybody. This is my own personal experience. I'm not ashamed to talk about it because I think it's so important for people to hear it. This is what goes on through my head, inside my mind, and it's very, very detailed. It's very, very hard to take in. Now, I have been lost in my thoughts over the years, and I have tried to take my life multiple times. Now, I'm at a stage where my life is fantastic, but it took me almost, on different occasions, on the most recent one, about 5 to 6 years, and to completely come out of it. And it was a long, long road. And at one point I decided I wasn't going to move past the age of 30. I decided if I get to 30 and I still feel this way, I'm done. I am done. And I had already planned in my head the next step. Now, back up from that, on the occasions where I tried to take my life, I feel that it generally was always triggered by an event, but the underlying issue was how I felt about not wanting to be alive, and one of those issues was caring for myself. I don't. In life, you always have to look after yourself, but that is never a big enough. It's never a big enough thing for me to do. Whenever I have a support system around me that I can care for and love, I feel that I have an importance, and I don't find myself to be an importance. Now, some people might open up a conversation and say, well, you have to love yourself to be able to love others, and you have to care for yourself. Now, don't get me wrong, I look after myself as best I can, but it's not as important as looking after someone I love. So, for example, my partner right now, she is everything to me. Looking after her and looking after her son is everything in my life right now, and it drives me every single day. Now, I feel that if I didn't have that anymore, I would be lost, and my reason for being has completely changed. My motivations have completely changed. My desire to do well in life will change, because me being successful on my own with no one to share it to or share it with is not important. So therefore, I would be afraid that I would step backwards in time and those underlying issues will come back again. If it's a genetic thing, then I feel like that's entirely possible. Now, I've been fortunate enough to find someone who really, really compliments me and is genuinely cares for me, and it works both ways. It causes no stress to my life, is only a benefit to me, and I know genuinely deep down entirely loves me, and I think that's very hard to find. When I was younger, and one of my closest relationships, I was meant to get married, and when the wedding was called off, it was a lot to take. And at the time, I made these decisions based on, I shouldn't feel this way, and I should, maybe there could be better than this, or But I didn't realize that even at that time, there was nothing. It wasn't that things weren't great. I just wasn't seeing clearly. I just got to a point where everything in my mind was foggy, and I was experiencing mental health, and I didn't know. We took steps to go and see the doctor. We went to the counsellors. Now, I don't suggest not seeing a counsellor, but in my point, for me, definitely went against sort of the reason what I went for. Whenever I told the counsellor everything, and I opened up, and most of the counsellors tend not to give you advice. They tend just to be there to listen. Now, when I talk about, my feelings, it brings out a side to me that it drains me. It completely makes me feel tired and wipes me out, changes my mood, and it's a very hard thing to do. But I do it, and I've always have. But the therapist, I obviously told her everything that was bad, and the therapist's advice was, you should step away from the bad. My immediate reaction was to walk outside and take care of the bad, make a phone call, you're bad. The therapist said, can't see you no more, and that's it, done. And that was black and white. That was the worst thing I could have ever done. And from there, massive spiral downhill, and very quickly my whole entire life changed on the spot. Now, her family, fantastic family, one of the nicest families I've ever met, or I'm so lucky to be a part of the family for 6 years. And they did everything for me, and they allowed me to come into their home, and we went away together, and Jesus, we had Christmases together. They fed me, they bought me Christmas presents, they made me feel like one of the family, and I've never ever been able to speak to them since, and it's such a hard thing to take in that people that they were your family in a sense, and then when you end a relationship, think without understanding the concept of it all, that you lose the family and not just one person, you lose them all. And I've never gotten to say sorry to them or apologise to them, and that's something I hope someday maybe they listen to this and they can understand. Obviously I was in such a deep dark place at the time and had no understanding of where it was coming from, and everything I was doing was just, the lines were blurred, and I was making bad decisions, and I didn't have the right people around to help me make the right decisions, and I thought I was big enough and old enough again to make the right decisions, but inevitably I wasn't. But in life, you make those decisions, and you have to live with the consequences. And my consequences were, I know the family suffered, and I know she suffered, and I also suffered myself. But I don't really care about my suffering. It was knowing that you hurt someone else. So my way of moving forward now is, and this helps me every day thinking about this, what changed my life was taking responsibility for every action that I take. So for example, in any bad relationship I was in, I used to blame the other person. You did this, and you said this, and you made me feel like this, and I don't deserve this, so I'm not going to be in this anymore. Right. Well, flip that across. I was the person that got myself involved in that relationship. I was the person who pursued it. I was the person that overlooked the red flags. I was the person who done everything, and it all stemmed from me. Yes, inevitably the other person may do something. That's all well and good. But as soon as you accept the fact that you're responsible for those situations in a different sense, then it'll change your life. So now that I met my partner, my goal for her, and I think about this a lot, if I treat her the way she deserves to be treated, and I only do the right things by her, I treat her well, I show her I love her, I show her I care for her, I show her that I'm present, I work my ass off, I show that we're moving forward together, show that we have plans together. I spend time with her. She understands that anything she needs is taken care of. It doesn't matter if she gives 100% and I give 100%, or she gives 10% and I give 100%. The fact is, I'm a man and I look after her, and it'll work both ways then. If I give her every single bit of me and I do no wrong, I don't hurt her in any way, I give her the best life possible, and I do nothing to hurt her, she'll love me eternally. But on the flip side, if she didn't, and in 10 years' time, she decided that she isn't in love with me anymore, she felt feelings for someone else and she wanted to move on, I can understand that I didn't do anything wrong. And my protection for myself would be knowing that I give her the best life I could, knowing that sometimes that happens in life, and looking in past times and looking at other relationships, or your parents' relationships, or your granny and granddad's relationship, if they ever split up, that sometimes those things happen. But you can only do the best you can do. You can only be the best version of you. And I truly believe if you take yourself out of the equation, give all of yourself to the other person, the chances of it being successful is way higher. Now, if you're the type of person that's always thinking about yourself, thinking about your personal happiness, thinking about, oh, maybe I could do better, or maybe there's someone else out there, you're only half in the door. Your foot's only half in. And if you're only half in, it's not going to work. You're going to have problems. It's going to wreck your head. And long term, you're going to have lots and lots of issues. Now, a lot of people's issues do come from their decision making. And to try and slow down or prevent any mental health issues from happening, I think it's so important for you to understand that taking responsibility means everything. Once you can decide to take that responsibility, then your life will change. When you decide that the job that you hate, to take responsibility that you chose to go into that job, or you decide that job is temporary because you need to look after your family are your priority, so you go to that job and you work that job to get your wages to pay and keep your family, but you have a get out plan. Now, you just don't accept that that's it, that's the way it's always going to be. There's always another option. Now, some of those other options are hard, but that's life. Make hard decisions and take risk, because as I said earlier, there's no risk if you get hit by a bus tomorrow. So if you took a risk and it didn't work out, always look at the worst case scenario. When analysing any business plan, you always do your business plan based on the worst case scenario. So if I open up a business and X business is all the costs are £1,000 a month, how many people do I need to get into my business for that to cover all the costs? Okay, so we're charging £10 per month. We need 100 people, and that's definitely achievable, because the market rate for gyms, for example, would be £20 per month, and therefore we turn £2,000 per month. Therefore, we can actually start to begin to get a wage before we look at any other aspect of how the business can make money, before we start personal training, before we hire in self-employed personal trainers, before we run boot camps, before we run large group training, before we sell supplements, before we sell any merchandise, before we run any offers, and then you start to realise that things aren't a risk. Initially, some businesses cost a lot of money to start up, which is where people feel that there's a bit of risk because you're putting in either your life savings or you need to go and get a loan. But inevitably, it all comes down to numbers, and if you get hit by a bus the next day, it wasn't really a risk, because life is flipping short. So if there's something that you truly believe in and it will truly make you happy, then go for it. There is nothing stopping you. The only thing stopping you is your own fear. And if that's the case, you should never ever hold someone else down. You should never ever put your fear on someone else. Now, every time I talked about opening a business from I was 22 years old, I was always told, oh, I don't know about that, I don't know if that'll do well. And somebody close to me said, what if it doesn't work? I goes, what do you mean if it doesn't work? They said, like what if obviously what if you need to close down and you don't make enough money? I goes, what are you talking about? The only way that happens is if I don't work hard enough. He goes, what do you mean? He goes, I will turn up there and I will sit there for 24 hours a day, and I will go out and I'll drag people through the door. I will do whatever it takes to make that business work. And that's how you make a success of things. You go out and you get the bull by the horns and you make it work. Now, if you sit back and always, you're the personality type that plays the victim and, you know, doesn't take responsibility for life the way it is right now, and you blame everything else and you blame everyone, your life is going to be pretty poor standard, and you're going to start hating things, you're going to get spiteful, and it's only going to get worse. Now, your life will get much better if you turn around and you take responsibility for everything going on. Now, there is one exception to that. And it just popped into my head there. If you're a child and something happens, there's a trauma happens in your life, now that can't be put on the person. Now, we're talking about an adult life here. That's when you take responsibility. And remember, do not use what's happened before as an excuse not to do something in the future. And like, I have every reason where I could have stepped back and, you know, not pursued different careers and used it all as an excuse. And do you know what? I always try to find those reasons of why I might have done something. I always self-analyse and I always look at different aspects of it. And I feel that sometimes it sounds like an excuse, but I'm trying to understand why I might make those decisions. Now, when I was in my worst place, and I mean really, really bad, thinking about not being here every single day, it was probably after my 5th or 6th time trying to take my own life. And I was like, this needs to change. Like, how am I going to stop this? And I actually got to a point where I started to self-educate on mental health, self-educate on depression. I wanted to learn how the brain worked, why I was thinking how I was thinking, and I wanted to learn every different thing about it so I could try and cure myself, basically. Now, one thing I came across was, it was a thing from Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins talks about your biological blueprint, right? So your biological blueprint is what you see your life being from whenever you were young. It's like one of the first things you would have, like, if you decided when you were younger you wanted to be a fireman, that was your everlasting goal. If you were female and your life was to have a family and your life was to look after the kids and have a husband that you love and have your house, that's your biological blueprint. That's what you really see your life being. Now, if your biological blueprint doesn't match up to what you subconsciously think it should, then that's where the issues come. So the further away from that you are from your biological blueprint, the more severe it seems to be. So when I heard this, I realised in my whole life the only thing I ever truly wanted was to be a professional footballer. And from the day that I decided not to do that anymore, I stopped playing, pretty much within the year, stopped playing football. And I couldn't, at the age of 25, 26 or whatever it was, whenever I was trying to figure this out, maybe a little even bit older than that, I realised I never decided what I wanted to do after that. I never decided to change my biological blueprint. Now, it's not that you have to change it or can change it. I needed to adapt it. I needed to decide what is the next thing, what is the most important thing. And it really made me understand, partly why I was so lost. And like nothing replaces that, but for me it doesn't replace it. But I then understood more what I needed to do. I needed to find another biological blueprint. I need to find a blueprint even. I needed just to get a roadmap to get me back on track. I need to have something where I can follow through with, like a higher purpose. That's why some people look to God. That's why some people, it's not that they truly believe every aspect of it. It's that they have something to believe in. They have a higher purpose than themselves. Now, and it's so important that you have, something along those lines. And if you're sitting here thinking now, do I have that? Or what is my biological blueprint? Really, really think about it. Like, what's your first memories of what's your first memories of what you thought you wanted to be, you know, where you wanted to go, where you wanted to live, you know, are you that person now? Do you think it's important that you're that person now, or are you not? All these different things matter. In terms of moving forward from there, the story continued to be talking about. It was about a girl who had. It described the girl who it was a woman who was in her 50s, who was a famous actor who had real friends. Now, emphasis on real friends. She believed that her close friends around her were true friends, and she believed that. So she was happy with her true friends. She loved her job. She had loads of money. She had a husband, and she was so depressed. So she went for help, and nobody could understand why are you feeling this way. Like you have everything that you've ever wanted. You know, you can do anything you want. You've got a beautiful home. There's nothing you don't have, and the thing came back to when Tony Robbins delved deeper into it. What they realised was she always wanted a child. So from she was very young, it wasn't even that she wanted a family. She always wanted another bloodline. She wanted a baby, and she couldn't have kids. So her issues came massive from that. So she realised it wasn't even having a husband. It was literally having someone connected to her by blood. And she never had a close family growing up, and that was the most important thing to her, and that's where she was struggling. So to find that out, it was easy for her. Not easy, but she was then able to understand, yes, that's exactly what it was. I can't believe that's what it was. I'd never even thought for 1 second that's what it would be. And then she was able to take steps to, you know, to overcome that. So whether they look down the line of maybe even adoption or, you know, IVF, there was other avenues after that to understand how to take her out of the situation that she was in. And the biological blueprint done a lot for me. It made me realise that I needed to reassess my whole life, and I think that's so important. So if you can have a wee think about that. There's another wee thing I used to do. It's called the Enneagram test. Now, if I can put a link to this afterwards, it was so very interesting to me. A company I used to volunteer for called Max, they would do this with their young kids. So they would give them the Enneagram test, and it's a pretty much a personality test, and it sort of describes, you know, a series of questions. You fill in your questions, and it gives you a reference to the type of person that you are. Now, it's kind of freakishly weird how close it can be. The other side of it is it sometimes dictates on the mood that you're feeling right now. So try to separate yourself from the mood you're in the moment that you do it. If you're in real bad form, don't do it, because you know the answers will probably be a little bit vague or more towards how you're feeling. Try to be open-minded and answer truthfully, and if you do that, it's nice to actually be able to see that what type of person you are. In that, then you can also use that to your benefit and realise, like, I'm a caring person, I'm a helper. These are the things that I do, and they'll help you along the way. So, for example, I think mine was mixed between two, and it described me perfectly. And it was always like it was. I think one of them was the helper, and I can't remember what the other one was now, but it made me realise, and I've realised this a few times over the years on my own as well, that helping other people helps me. So I understand that one of the reasons for the podcast is knowing that how I speak and the way I see the world and how I speak to other people, they tend to open up and talk to me. Now, I understood this around 2015 is the first time I realised it, and I put a post up one day just about how, you know, what was in my mind, and I maybe had about 10 replies back saying, thank you so much for that, I really needed to hear that. I still get that a little bit now, but it made me realise the amount of people that came to me afterwards that I would sit down and have a coffee with and talk to, that I was able to help them, and that helped me. I realised I had another purpose, and that other purpose was helping other people. And there's something massive to be said about being that person, about being a good person, someone that does take the time. Now, I've been in situations for that some people don't honestly don't deserve it, but I'm not I'm not in the position to really decide, oh, you're in a deep enough, dark enough position where I should help you, or you're not. Everyone's level of how bad it is different. So to be naive enough to turn around and think that's only small, that shouldn't hurt you that much, that is also wrong. You should never think like that. What affects me will affect somebody twice as much, and what affects me might not affect somebody else at all. And it doesn't matter how severe it is. It matters that it's affecting someone. And if you can be the shoulder to help someone else, and you can listen to this podcast and take those wee tips away, then why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you try to help somebody instead of always looking for something in return? Now, today with social media, all I can see is everyone wanting something in return. Well, I did this for you, so you do this for me. Just thinking about that, it always takes me back to think about a time when, it's a quote I used to always go by: treat people how you would like to be treated. Now, when I was studying different things with depression and mental health and psychology, one of the things I came across was how that misconception is portrayed. So, for example, say I come from a poor family and we were brought up on the best morals that we could come up, but we didn't know what it was like to have table manners. We didn't understand, what it was like to maybe hold a door for someone. We never got taken to nice places or went on holidays. So my expectation levels are quite low. So flip that to the other side, to someone who was brought up in a really, really high-end family, somebody who was a family that was wealthy, that was loving, that went on holidays together, loved one another, ate together, just had, a really great upbringing in a sense. But combine them two in a relationship. So say the girl is on the higher end and I myself am the male on the lower end, and that girl expects me to treat her like she expects. I am not on the level to even understand her level. I am so far below her that I can only do the best version of me, which is probably still falling short of what she can understand. So in some of those senses, you have to take more into consideration. And in every situation, if you're the type of person that is objectively and closing things down too quickly, then that's where your issues lay. You need to open up and you need to see things in a broader perspective and try to understand the situation better. Now, if you're constantly getting yourself into bad situations, bad things are going to keep happening. If you have bad people around you, bad things are going to keep happening. So look and analyse. It's like, I had a boss that used to say to me, sometimes when you're in the business, you're trapped inside the business. You don't actually see what it's like from the outside in. So I think it was he said that you need to look at it like from an eagle eye, like a bird's eye view. So you need to step outside the business and you need to look back in again. And it just made complete sense. So you see what other people can't, you're seeing what you couldn't see initially, what other people are saying that you can't. So you step outside the business, you look in and you see that the windows are dirty, the shutters are half up, the posters are all slanted, and people are coming in and expecting a really, they're nearly expecting a low service when you really should be giving a high service. But it's because on the outside the appearance wasn't the way it should be. And all it was to do was to take an example and, apply that to your whole life. What are other people saying? Do you look after yourself? Do you, take pride in your appearance? Do you take pride in how you speak to other people? Do you, in Natasha's podcast today, the one thing she said about me, which I never heard before, was she always looked up to me in a sense, because in the fitness industry, it's very common for people to have a sense of negativity towards each other. There's some weird form of jealousy, and people, they may not even know each other, but they can't even say hello. But Natasha said that from day one that I ever seen her, I think we both come on each other's radars in about 2015. She said I always waved and I always said hello. Now that's not even something I would think about. my reply to that was that's your morals. That's your base. That should be a given. I don't think that's what I have to do. That's naturally comes out of me. But when she said it made me realise that in life today, so many people do that, and it's so that they actually don't do that. Sorry, and they look past people. They can't say hello to people in the street anymore. They can't hold the door anymore. But that's another version of treat people how you want to be treated. That's on a different level. That's on a common sense level. That's on something that you can take care of right now. And you start being good to people like that. It doesn't matter what they give back to you. You be the best version of you, and you constantly do it over and over and over again, and good things will happen to you. Now, I had a situation recently, and you know what? At the time, it's so frustrating. But what happens from it is it's kind of karma. I had a lady come out to view. Now, I have a separate company called Onyx Fitness Systems, and we sell sort of different types of equipment or whatever. But the lady came out. She wanted to view treadmill, cross trainer, and a bike, I think. And I said, "Yep, come out. You can have a look at them. You can see them. Take your time, and if you like them, you can take them." So she came out, spent about an hour on them. She was on the phone to a friend. Decided that they were happy with everything, and that they were going to take them. So she handed me a £600 deposit, and the rest was going to be on delivery. And I was like, right, okay, no problem. I'll get that down to you ASAP. Within about 3 hours, I got a message saying, "Oh, sorry, Darren, could I have that deposit back because we changed our minds?" And I was like, oh man, here we go. And then just within about a minute, I just realised, right, the reason why you get a bad name is in situations like these, because it's too easy to turn around and say, no, you paid your deposit, you're not getting your money back, they're yours, I'm dropping them off, you give me the rest of the money. Now, you think about the issue from that. If I deliver that off, how are they going to feel when they see me? They're going to hate my face. So I have no option but to take the right option, which was no problem. If you want to call up whenever you're ready, I'll get the money for you, and you can have your deposit back, and happy days, all sorted. The lady was happy enough. She came straight back up the road. A few hours later, or maybe the next day, and the guy, I actually had a message not long after from another guy who was interested in all the same stuff, who I arranged to come up. And the funny thing was, both of them arrived at exactly the same time. And my point is, the guy was listening to the conversation that we had, understanding that they had changed their mind. I gave her deposit back, which I didn't have to do, and he's seen this, and he automatically said to me, he asked me what the cost was. I told him what the cost was, and he was like, do you mind if I pay you when you drop it off? I go, sorry, I can't do that. It has to be paid up front. And you've just seen that I've given the lady her deposit back, so you know firsthand that I've done this in front of you and I'm trustworthy. And he says, all right, no problem. And then within a second, transferred the money, and that was it, all paid. But that was karma, me doing the right thing, giving the lady her money back, and immediately selling it out to another person. So everybody got the best. The new guy was happy. The lady, whatever happened with her wires crossed, she was banned with someone else, a friend of hers, and miscommunicated, and she has no hassle from him. She got her money back. They can go and do whatever they want. The new guy came. He bought the stuff anyway. I got the money I needed for it. I'm happy. They're happy. Everybody went away happy. There was no bad reviews for the business, and the business moved forward. But if I had to turn around and said, no, you're not getting your deposit back, the other guy would have came. He would have been like, can I have that equipment? No, that equipment's not there either. It's now sold. I'm pushing it on to somebody else who generally didn't want it and just wanted their money back. I feel crap. They feel crap. And the business gets a bad review. But a lot of people don't see that in the broader, the broad prospect of everything else. Now, I have another 50 odd bullet points here of things to talk about, but I'm going to end the episode here. And what I want to do is I want to bring it back onto a main topic next week. So I'm going to focus on one topic at a time. So I'm going to bring up the football on its own. I'm going to bring up probably the darkest side with probably my father, and I'll bring it into the suicide side of things and my experience with it. So all the topics I went through at the start, I'm going to delve into them really deep. Also, things to do with football as well, and we'll just fine tune that from there. With all the questions in regards to anything you may be experiencing, then please just send me an email across. Send me an email, or you can, probably best just to do the email. The email would be dmcanairney@icloud.com. So it's D for Delta, M for Mike, C for Charlie, A for Alpha, N for November, E for Echo, A for Alpha, R for Romeo, N for November, E for Echo, Y for Yankee @icloud.com. I'll try and put that link up as well. Put your emails through, ask whatever you need to ask. Give me a thumbs up if you want to give me a thumbs up. Just try and support this as much as you can, because as I say, I don't want anything from this podcast just for people to sit down and listen to and think, right, this guy has been through a lot. Can I take a little bit from this? Would this be able to help someone I know? Maybe I can ask this question, he can answer it. I have a few people that I think would be nice to get onto the podcast, because every time I talk to somebody about this stuff, they give me other avenues to go down. And then when I'm assessing it and I give my opinions and I allow them to see different aspects of it, it helps everyone. It even helps them in the moment in time that they're in it. So I think it's so important. So thanks for tuning in, and I'm going to get the next one up on a weekly basis. So hopefully 7 to 10 days apart every time, and I'm going to just keep rolling with it. This will be the longest one. The rest of them I'm going to try and get them within 30 minutes. So any feedback, please give it. Anything you can request, please do. And thank you very much.